Hello and welcome to NC Insights and Innovators, the voices shaping North Carolina's economic landscape. With us today is Laura Stewart. She is co-owner with her husband of Haw River Mushrooms, and they're located in Saxapahaw. Laura, welcome.
Thank you very much.
We are so interested to hear about your business.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm excited to be here.
So what inspired you to start Haw River Mushrooms and for you and your husband to become mushroom farmers?
Yeah. So I tell people ever since I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to be a mushroom farmer.
Really?
No. No, I did not see it coming. I met my husband in Ohio about 15 years ago. He dreamed of being a farmer, but a regenerative livestock farmer. And so this was sort of a new concept to me. I had the biggest garden in my neighborhood, but had never thought of farming as a career. But we fell in love, began to work on a business plan. We lived in Ohio at that time, and he's from South Carolina. And so we wanted to farm in a climate that had a longer season than either South Carolina or Ohio. Applied to jobs in North Carolina and Tennessee, and thank goodness we landed here because this has been the perfect place to build our business. And while we built that livestock business plan, we started also selling produce, diversified produce, broccoli, lettuce, all those things, and added mushrooms to the lineup. And as we were doing that, we realized we were deep in business plan mode, and we realized like there's a lot of market access here. And we were learning about some of the different varieties that 12 years ago, the U.S. is kind of having its mushroom renaissance. And so 12 years ago, we'd never heard of lion's mane. I think I had my first oyster mushroom when I was well into my 30s.
I don't think I've had one yet.
Oh, well, we're going to fix that today.
Okay.
But we started realizing, oh, there's all these varieties, and let's take a gamble and see if we can actually build our business around mushrooms. So we redid the business plan. I told my husband we can be homesteaders with the livestock, which took us a decade, but we now have 4 cows, 4 pigs, some chickens.
Just needs a few horses.
That's right.
Donkeys.
That's right. Yeah. He will love that. And that's what we've been doing now for 13 years.
That is fantastic. So how has the vision for the business continued to evolve over the years? So it changed pretty dramatically there in the beginning.
It did, yeah. So changed crops. And then we're first generation farmers. One of the things I like to share about my farm is, as you know, first generation farmers, land access is one of the biggest barriers. And what often happens is people lease someone else's land and they build up their business there, which is wonderful that they have that access. But then when they're ready to move to their own land, they lose all the improvements that they made. Even if it's just soil improvements, that's a huge investment. Sometimes it's infrastructure. But what we've done is build the business in shipping containers and then later refrigerator trailers. And it wasn't until 2020, 8 years into our farming journey, that we built our first brick and mortar climate controlled grow space. So we love that model because we're able to do it bootstrapped. We weren't coming into it with a massive capital investment. And we've been able now to build it to, we believe we're the largest mushroom farm in the state of North Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're producing 1,000 pounds a week, and call me if you're a mushroom farmer in the state who's doing more. Yeah, and so then the next pivot, we also were building it in a way that we could maintain off-farm jobs until we were ready to go full-time with the farming. So we did it part-time for 5.5 years. And then when we added our next climate-controlled refrigerator trailer, we took that big leap. We also had our twins, who are 9 now. They were born in 2016, and that was another kind of impetus to try to bring our life onto the farm and not be juggling full-time off-farm work. So we did that, and also upon having the twins, we got into making prepared mushroom-based foods, and that's been a big evolution for the company. So our first one was oyster mushroom jerky. we built the farm going to different farmers markets. And we used to bring a Coleman stove and cook the jerky over that stove. One of our claims to fame is there's a "do not catch your booth on fire" clause in the Chapel Hill Farmers Market bylaws, and we were the inspiration.
Okay, we have to have a little bit of that story.
Yes, right. In short, we were cooking and a customer said, "Are you aware that your table's on fire?" And we said,
no.
"Everything's fine, but your sample will be delayed." Put it out quickly. Yeah, but that's gone down in farmers market lore.
Yeah, I'm sure.
As we were bringing the babies to market with us, we knew we didn't want to combine that with an open flame. And so we were trying to think of other ways to sample. Our mushroom varieties are still really new to a lot of people, so it's important that they can taste them in some way. So if you are a mushroom forager, one thing you know is that when you have a really good day foraging and you're coming back with 100 pounds of maitake or oyster mushroom, you've probably been in the woods all day, hiking and carrying that in, and now you've got this amazing harvest, but you have like 24 hours sometimes to get it preserved and shelf stable. And so something mushroom foragers do is they make a mushroom jerky. And so that's what we turned to, and we partnered with several different chefs in the area and did a lot of tests ourselves and landed on our first mushroom jerky flavor, which we still make. That's our sassy sesame teriyaki.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Jerky. The original plan was it's just a sample that we can have out to buy us extra time if we're dealing with a kid while a customer's waiting. But it was very popular. People were asking to purchase it. So we partnered with the Piedmont Food Processing Facility in Hillsboro, which is a shared use community kitchen. And just a plug for that. It's so important to have resources like that to foster food innovation in the state. We now have our own on-farm pilot kitchen, but when you're starting out, there's no way we would say, "Oh, let's explore this jerky. Let's make $100,000 in capital investment to build a kitchen at home." So there's a lot of businesses that have been launched out of, we call it PFAP, and it's a really important economic investment. So we started there, we got to validate our process, and in 2020, the North Carolina Food Innovation Lab opened. One of the issues with our jerky is our original process, it was like a 3-day event. So, we'd cook the mushrooms and then we would marinate them overnight and then dehydrate them. And it took a long time, which was a barrier to scaling. So the North Carolina Food Innovation Lab is a resource that's used internationally, a partnership with NC State, and I'm not going to name all the partners. But basically they're a test pilot facility. So we were able to work with them to run the jerky through, and they said, well, you could make it, this way, this way, this way. We tried it using all the different equipment, and they were able to get that process down to 6 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what a
now
difference.
It's this very scalable, viable.
And you produce that at your location now.
And now we do. Now we've been able to take that and know the right equipment to purchase for ourselves. In 2023, we did fundraising to buy our own pilot processing facility. So it's actually a 450 square foot trailer that is stationary and has been USDA inspected to serve as our production facility.
Is that your most popular product that you sell?
It is. So being at the farmers market, it's enabled us to soft launch quite a few different products. So we have 14 different items that we make. We have a umami salt. We have 3 varieties of that umami salt. We make a mushroom coffee. We have 3 flavors of the mushroom jerky and some frozen soups. We do dried mushrooms, and a byproduct of the jerky making process, we do a water bath to water bath the mushrooms before we go through the rest of the process. And we used to throw that away which makes me cringe now, because one day we were just like, it smells amazing. We should turn this into broth and see if people like it. And my husband is the recipe maker. We call him the mad scientist because that's his favorite thing. He gets banned from R&D like 4 times a year because it's like, this is amazing, but stop making new products. But I was like, good news, Chess, you can do R&D on the mushroom broth. And he brought it into the house, and I remember trying it and saying, I never want to not have this in the house. Like,
wow.
Kind of blew me away. And so we make that, right now we sell it frozen. And in this process of making the prepared foods, our ideas about who we wanted to be as a business started to shift. So when we got started, we really wanted to be like North Carolina's go-to fresh mushroom farm. But we really fell in love with all the different things you can do with mushrooms and the varieties that they offer. There's mushrooms that taste like steak. There's mushrooms that taste like lobster, like crab meat. The mushrooms are genetically more similar to like animals or meat than they are to plants.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That was fascinating.
And that shows up in their natural meaty texture. And people, I think a lot of Americans grew up thinking mushrooms don't have a lot of nutritional value. The oyster mushroom, which we're going to make sure you try soon,
Okay.
that's what we make our jerky out of. And it has the same protein by dry weight as chicken.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like a vegan, problem solver.
Yeah, sounds like
and our mushroom jerkies have 8 grams of protein per serving. We began to shift gears and realize like where we really wanted to establish ourselves is in the alternative proteins industry, and representing, I feel like mushrooms is underrepresented in that space. So that was a huge mental pivot. We had a huge learning curve. We'd really kind of built the business as a mom and pop. And now we wanted to be able to scale. We wanted to maintain that vertical integration. So we wanted to continue to grow our own mushrooms, but eventually the goal is that everything we grow goes straight into our prepared foods that can be shipped all over the country.
So people order them from your website in addition to be able to just purchase them at the farmer's market?
Correct. So we're at 4 farmers markets. So if you're local here, you can find us in and Hillsborough, Chapel Hill at University Place, Carborough Farmers Market, and downtown Durham Farmers Market. But any shelf-stable product that we make, you can order on our website, hawrivermushrooms.com, and we ship nationally. And we are also doing some distribution. So we're in 3 states, and our plans over the next year are to continue to expand that. So a lot of our work this year has been just getting up to scale, and making sure that our processes are documented. So as we bring on new people, our quality standards are preserved. So this is really different thinking than when we first founded the mushroom farm. We've needed a lot of mentorship and a lot of help and support, and that's one of the reasons I said I'm so glad our business is here in North Carolina, because we found it in abundance.
Really?
Yeah.
So that was one of my questions. So we'll just kind of skip to that.
Skip over that.
So why? What kind of support have you received? Is it mostly local, regional, at the state level, or all of the above?
Kind of all of the above. So I think early on in the process, someone told us to reach out to the SBTDC. I want to say what it stands for. Do you know?
TDC.
Small Business Technology and Development Center.
Oh, there you go. Great.
Yes. We reached out to them and said, we're trying to really change our business plan, and can somebody just help us? Like, where do we even start? What do we not even know right, that we don't know right now? Mm-hmm. And they gave us a mentor. They look at our financials quarterly and give us feedback. It's all free.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very amazing. And around that same time, we reached out to the Alamance Chamber of Commerce. I understand you've also interviewed Stephanie Williams.
That's
I speak
correct.
highly of them. So
and I've been a member of the chamber, I'm telling my age here, since 1994.
Fantastic.
So Ken and I, as partners in our business, I mean, the chamber has been so important to our business success. So
Yeah.
it sounds like they have been to yours as
They
well.
absolutely have to us as well. I think when we made our original connection to them, we were just saying like, hey, I just want you to know we're growing in these different areas. And I was needing to build my first pitch deck. And so they helped me connect with some additional mentors to practice my pitch. Since then, check them out. They're doing a lot of different contests for other small businesses, and we've been able to win some grant funds through them. And that's been enormously helpful to be able to make some of those capital investments. Mm-hmm. Again, we're a very bootstrapped farm. And then I've done an accelerator program based out of Winston-Salem through the Center for a Creative Economy. That was very game-changing for me, both in the connections I made with mentors and in the curriculum work that we did to tackle some of those growth steps. For farmers, I will also say one reason I think we have such a vibrant small farm community is Pittsboro is home to the Rural Advancement Foundation International, RAFI.
I did not know that.
So they are an international farmer-serving country based right here, 20 minutes from my farm, and the Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, which serves North and South Carolina, and they have programs to help with organic certification, GAP certification. They also do a lot of really, really important advocacy for small farms. Sometimes legislation will be proposed that sort of has in mind, what do we need to do for food safety for the largest corporate farm? And the initial legislation will say, okay, and let's apply that to all farms. Mm-hmm. And it
doesn't always work.
If it were to pass, it would just be a small farm killer. And CFSA, on more than one occasion, has gone to Congress and sort of said, like, hey, let me show you the economic impact of these farms and what they're already doing for food safety. So what kind of regulations we think you could propose that make sure that's happening everywhere, but don't create this huge financial burden for a farm that makes, significantly less than millions and millions every year. Yeah.
Well, it's so heartening to hear that there's so many resources for an agricultural-based business. It's been such an important economic base for our state. And so you hear about so many different ways the state's economy is diversifying.
Yeah.
So to hear that a small agricultural business has blossomed right here in our backyard, that is really interesting and very heartening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there other businesses that you've partnered with in addition to these organizations that have helped, who've helped overcome some challenges?
Yeah, so the kind of small business food community is very friendly. And so there's dozens that we've called and said, like, would you mind sharing, this information with me? I'm almost hesitant to give a shout out, but, Kakalaki, fantastic local company. They've been really open with us. Big Spoon Roasters, Y'all Company. It's a community. And that's something I love is I think a lot of us feel like we were invested in when we started out, and it's just the culture now to invest in others.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All through this process and your growth, which is obviously seems to be going very well, were financial considerations the biggest challenge you faced all along, or has that kind of morphed as you've been able to apply for some grants and find more success?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that access to capital has been the biggest barrier. Some of it,
as it is with so many small businesses.
Absolutely.
And so I wondered if it was even harder for agricultural businesses.
I think when you look at our particular model, we're a vertically integrated CPG, consumer packaged goods startup. And so it kind of makes us this like odd man out in a couple different worlds. So in the USDA funding world, a lot of the funding is not necessarily geared around fast growth startups. And so they would sometimes look at our margins and say, well, if we took away this grant, had you not won this grant, you would have lost money. So I'm not sure you're investable, because it's designed around farms kind of doing a more predictable thing, and we're just constantly investing in new staffing. Or if you go to the startup world, we've had folks say, you've been around for 13 years and you've grown so slowly. So I think that's been interesting for us to really own that what we're doing is going to have staying power because it's different. Because we have that vertical integration, we have complete control over the quality of our mushrooms. I think there's about to be some supply chain issues with mushrooms.
Really?
Yeah, so I believe it's about 12% of the U.S. mushrooms is imported right now. And then there's another subset, this is a soapbox of mine, right now, and this is legal, but mushroom substrate, so the things we specialize in hardwood mushrooms, so we grow on sawdust and soybean hulls. And there are folks that ship those across the ocean, and then you can buy them and cut them open on U.S. soil and sell them as U.S. grown mushrooms. But as a mushroom farmer, the mycelium in that bag and the food you give your mushrooms is just as much a part of the mushroom as, whose soil you fruited on. So it's important to us to maintain the vertical integration too, so we always have access to mushrooms that we know exactly what it grew on. I know those will be advantages, but it also has meant our growth has been kind of slow, and financing it has required a lot. So to scale, we're having to grow both the farm infrastructure and the food processing infrastructure.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
But you're doing it.
But we're doing it, and we really bringing the kitchen on farm, and we crowdfunded that investment. So we had about 100 customers who bought. They were able to buy into that campaign for as little as $100, and that I thought that was a really beautiful way for us to have our breakout growth, because
absolutely
they are now they're owners in that, and they're receiving some of the investment of our growth, and it has marked kind of this change in our trajectory where finally we could do things in-house and have a whole lot more control. Yeah.
That's fabulous. So we've talked about being located in Saxapahaw and all the beneficial organizations that have been around to help you. The business climate in Central North Carolina and the state in general, has it been as supportive, and do you find that businesses and government from around our part of the state are enthusiastic about what you're doing? Or are they kind of like, well, you're growing slowly, maybe we need to hesitate and think about this?
Such a good question. First, I do want to back up and give Saxapahaw more of a shout out.
Okay.
So it is located in Central North Carolina, and it's a renovated mill town that has become a real shelter for farmers and artists. It's the home of Paper Hand Puppet Theater, an internationally known puppet theater, and several farms. And they do a free concert on the Hill every Saturday. But it is a very special place that's very much part of our story and why we've been able to do what we do. But bigger picture, it's so rooted in our evolution. Even people who have given me feedback like, hey, you're growing kind of slow, I almost always have felt like it's out of a place of support, that they're trying to help me see how investors might look at our company. And I also think we had some growth to do to think about all the work that we've done to switch from being a mom and pop company to truly being a startup. And we began that work in earnest in 2020. And so now 5 years in is where I really say with confidence, like, yeah, our model is the model of a startup, not just a mom and pop. Not that there's no just there, because that was a lot. Yeah. But, our trajectory really has changed, and we've done the things. We're starting to understand the language of that community. I think so. Even where we've gotten a little bit of pushback, I think part of it is the process of us understanding how to articulate and have confidence in what we're scaling and why it might grow slower, but it's going to have staying power.
Slow and steady.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what does it. And so many cases.
Yes.
What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs who are considering starting an agricultural business in our area?
So much advice. Let me try to save you so much pain. I wish I could say these things to 15 years ago, Laura. The very first one is do a lot of thinking about, is it that you want to farm, as in make your money and your living from farming, or do you want to have a homestead? Because you can save yourself a lot of pain if you're just trying to feed your family really high quality food. A lot of beginning farmers that I'll speak to, they'll say maybe they just inherited land, and they'll say, so we're planning to have pigs and cows and grow 30 types of vegetables, and we want free range chickens and ducks. And that model is going to be very, very difficult to bring to the scale where it's profitable. So I would consider if that's the dream, to consider being able to do all of it on a really small scale for your family, and maybe some little monetization efforts, but keep it small. For folks that are saying, I want to make my living farming, I would look for a niche, both in terms of what you're going to grow, make sure you're the best at it, and then also in terms of your sales channels. There was a point with Haw River mushrooms that we were selling. We were self-distributing to probably 30 restaurants at one point. We had a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, with 100 subscribers.
Wow.
Which was amazing, such a great way to connect with customers. But when someone buys into your CSA, they'll pay for, in our case, they could do a month, a quarter, 3 months, or an entire year, where they've committed to buy our mushrooms. And that allowed us to have the capital up front to make the investments we needed to provide that. And it also let us know the sales channels are secure. So if I want to grow piapini or a mushroom that has a shorter shelf life, I don't have to worry about, well, what if I don't sell it in time and then I lose that investment? I can grow it just for them. But it also means those are really dedicated customers who deserve recipes and fast responses to your communication. So at one point we said, we either need to grow the CSA to 200 people or let it go. And based on where our sales were at that time, we went ahead and let it go, which was hard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But bringing a sales channel to scale, if you're doing farmers markets, make sure you've maximized what you can sell at your first market before adding that second market, because it's very easy to work harder and not see the increase in yield that you would have seen. That's such a good question. I actually wrote down notes of everything I want to say.
Okay.
So we said, find your niche, make sure it's investable. Understanding your costs. That's a lot of times people get into farming because they're passionate and they're dreamers and they have big ideas. But if you want to do it for a living, go to the SBTDC or find a mentor. You have to have your budget. You have to know your costs. You have to know your break-even point. You need to know what you should be charging your customers.
It's always about the numbers.
Yeah, and in our business, some of our hardest years were 2022 when there was so much inflation. That was a wake-up call. We were looking at our costs, but we changed some things, so we looked at them in more real time, because when there's inflation, businesses are always going to respond a little behind the times, and that was tough. So you need to know those costs. You can bring in partners if that's not your thing. But the second thing is, don't run out of money. A lot of businesses fail because they are successful, and all that money going into scaling. Now they have more inventory. The bigger you are, the harder you fall.
Yeah.
I wish that we had gone back to the very beginning when we had those off-farm jobs and taken out a loan using that income. Because the other thing, farmers generally are not filing a W-2. And so before you leave that off-farm job, have more capital than you think you need. I think we went into it very debt adverse. And looking back, I wish I'd sort of said, like, actually, you know what you're doing. You know smart ways to use debt. So, have a conversation with 20 people about whether it's a good idea or not, but then take out as big a loan as you can get. I wish I had done that, and I think it would have set us up to grow, to be able to make more business decisions based on what's absolutely best for the business versus what we can afford.
Yeah,
Which,
gotcha.
as you said, I think that's all small business owners in a lot of ways. And there's a point where early on, there was a point where it's like, oh, good thing this is all self-funded because we made mistakes here, and here. But we've been doing it 13 years. Like, we know what we're doing now. And then the last thing I've written down is really build your network. The network means so much more than what we realized. And, even in this, you'll see we're pretty open about our vulnerabilities. I think your business is kind of your baby, and it's easy to be protective of it, but we know we're doing the right thing. We know we're really on to something. We're proud of what we've grown. And so as we've moved into that place of comfort, it's been easier for us to say, but right now we don't feel like we're good at this, and almost broadcast it, at least to our group of mentors, because we want to bring in resource. We can become good at it. So I think we've seen enough things like that where early on we might have almost been like, well, let's not call attention to that. And now it's like, with the right group of people, that should be, I want to have a conversation about that with 20 different people because they're going to help me. I don't have to be good at everything. They'll help me figure out the resources to be better in that area. Yeah.
Which every business needs.
Absolutely. You're not going to be good at everything.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. Your story is fascinating. And we appreciate you watching NC Insights and Innovators. If you would like to learn more, please visit the website at the bottom of your screen. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.